Hi, this is Jan, and this is a piece on a special type of forgiveness I learned a while ago and I found very, very helpful for myself, so I want to share it with you. And this came from, first time I heard about it, from John Roger in a book called Momentum, Letting Love Lead. So, let's bring ourselves present for the moment. Just relax, sit comfortably, lie down comfortably, whatever. And take a couple slow, deep breaths. Just in and out. In and out. Just coming more centered, more focused, more relaxed, present, and setting aside every distraction just for a couple minutes here. And one of the ways I focus myself is I say a short prayer asking that whatever's for the highest good come forward for each person listening to this now and later. So in talking about opening to our loving self, one of the main things that I found that can be a block to that are judgments. Judgments can be a key in blocking coming to our loving self. And the way I look at judgments, if I make a mistake or somebody else makes a mistake, one part is the action. What is the action? Suppose somebody dropped something and broke it. Okay, so the action is it got dropped, it got broken, whatever it was. And it's one thing to forgive that. But what often remains after that is the sense of, how could they have been so stupid? And that's the judgment. Is coming to like a conclusion that somebody, because of what they did, is bad, less worthwhile, somehow, going down a peg as a human being, like you're less of a human being in some way. Something derogatory. It's not just observing the mistake. It's not just saying, okay, there's a mistake, let's correct it. And at the same time, you're still a worthwhile human being. You're still somebody who is doing the best they can. And that's my basic orientation, that each one of us is doing the best we can, given what we know at the time, the resources, the abilities we have, maturity level, the nature of the situation. We're really doing the best we can. And I don't believe anybody makes a true mistake on purpose, intentionally. It's what a mistake is a mistake. Somehow we miss the mark somewhere. So there's a difference to me between looking at something and evaluating and say, yes, this is a mistake. This brought about some unpleasant consequences, to going to the next step and you're a lousy person for having done it. You're bad, you're awful. There's the judgment. At the same time, we can apply judgments to ourselves. That I was bad, I was awful, I was lousy because I said this or did this. And again, it's one thing to forgive the action, but holding on to the judgment can be the most hurtful part. If we're holding a judgment, what we're actually doing, let's say if we're judging somebody else, one is we're directing negative energy at somebody, either mentally or verbally. You can think negative thoughts about somebody, and it just sends a sense of negative energy towards somebody. if you're standing in a room and somebody's standing, a few feet away from you, you can also often get a sense that there's something, not good vibes between you. If they're angry with you, and you're not even aware of what it's about, but you can feel the anger, you can feel the negativity coming from somebody. And then the second part is we're holding that person inside ourselves with a negative thought. So we're holding negative energy inside us. See, the judgments is what hurts us. It hurts us. We're holding that negativity inside us, the negative energy. So we're actually holding on to the person. We may be so angry at somebody and want to get them out of our mind, but as long as we're judging them, we're the ones holding them inside us. And at the same time, if we're judging ourselves, we're directing our own negative energy at ourselves. And we're holding negative energy about ourselves. So we're doing something that's harmful to us. So we need to forgive ourselves in both cases, whether we're judging somebody else or judging ourselves. Forgive ourselves for doing something that's hurtful to ourselves. Either holding negative energy about somebody else inside ourselves, or holding our own negative energy about ourselves inside ourselves. We're doing something hurtful to ourselves. So it's forgiving ourselves for those judgments. And a shorthand way, you can say, I forgive myself for doing something hurtful to myself. And a shorthand way that I use is forgive myself for judging myself. It's a shorthand way that I use. So what I always recommend in doing any kind of forgiveness work is ask that only the highest good comes forward for all concerned. So, and if you have a spiritual source, ask for the assistance of the loving spiritual source. So I put all my work in the light for the highest good. And then I might say, I forgive myself for judging Harry during the argument we had, for judging Harry as a jerk. I forgive myself for judging myself as being a rotten person for what I said. Forgive myself for judging myself for being an imperfect person. It doesn't have to be actions. It might be that we're judging ourselves that we're just not good enough. Or I forgive myself for judging myself as never doing anything right, never getting it right. Forgive myself for judging myself for being an angry person. Forgive myself for judging myself for being an unloving person. Forgive myself for judging myself for forgetting I'm a loving person. Forgive myself for judging myself for forgetting I'm divine, that I have a soul. That's an important one for me. Forgive myself for judging myself for separating myself from people around me by my own self-judgments, thinking I'm not good enough to be with other people. So there's all kind of judgments we can get into about ourselves. And when we judge ourselves, we're certainly holding negative energy about ourselves inside. So, and one way to experiment is to do the forgiveness, self-forgiveness of the judgments. And when we release the judgments, often we may feel a sense of warmth, or maybe relaxation, or maybe just a sigh comes out, or it feels like a weight's been lifted off our shoulders. And sometimes the judgments, there might be one, maybe there's another one after, because maybe just another layer or level. So, and if something, pace yourself, not doing a lot all at one time, because you may be bringing up too much stuff. So I sometimes do this before I go to bed, so I kind of release all my criticism about myself of the whatever during the day I did that I thought wasn't so hot. And again, I put it all in the light for the highest good, so I can release it and let it go. And once I let it go, is don't go back to it. I don't go back to it, so I'm not going back into negativity. I just release it, let it go, learn from whatever my mistake was, and do the best I can next time. Another area helpful is when I was doing forgiveness work, and there were times when I wanted to say, I want to release this issue, I want to let go of it. And I'd say, okay, I'm letting go of it. Here it goes, I'm letting go of it. And it wasn't going anywhere. And in doing this type of forgiveness work, what I learned was often in letting go, there may be something I needed to stop doing or something I needed to start doing. And one example I found was years ago in a friendship with somebody. There were oftentimes I thought I was being deceived in some areas, but I chose to ignore it, overlook it, excuse it. So I was actually allowing myself to be deceived, but I thought the rest of the friendship was strong enough. And then after some time, I did eventually end the relationship. And I find myself getting stuck in anger a lot. And that's what I was trying to release, the anger. And what I found was that I was actually more angry at myself than the other person because I had allowed myself to be treated badly. I had stayed in the relationship and I allowed it to happen. So the first thing I needed to stop doing was blaming the other person for what went on in the relationship because I allowed it. I could have walked away at any time. And what I needed to start doing was forgive the judgments about this other person, forgive the judgments about myself for being stupid and staying in the relationship, being weak and staying in the relationship, or whatever else might apply there. So I found there were some things, and then it took some time, and very gradually I was able to start letting go of the anger. So it took working through this a number of times, but eventually I was able to let it go. But I really had to take my responsibility for the part in the relationship of what I allowed. So I find that doing forgiveness of others, myself, and then also forgiving the judgments of others and myself to be a way to really release myself from negative energy, open up my energy, and as I release those, then I start finding ways to connect more with my loving, because if I'm releasing the negativity, I give myself more access to my loving energy, to uncovering it, letting it reveal itself to me as I bring myself into a more loving focus, a more loving direction, through acceptance of myself and others, through compassion for myself and others, that we're all trying the best we can. And I find as I do the forgiveness, release the judgments, release the negativity, I start over time feeling a sense of lightness, feeling lighter, and moving towards joy more, being able to connect with that joy inside, connecting with my loving and connecting with joy inside. And with the compassion, again, it's also the understanding or the realizing that we're all really going through the same things. We just have our own style and our own way of doing it. But we're really all going through the same types of difficulties and challenges. And if we see each other as basically the same, then we can come to that realization, that connection, that we're all one. We're all connected. We're all one. And that's a great way to be able to move to our loving, to feel that connection with all around us, and eventually with just all in the universe. It's really reaching that spiritual high, the higher consciousness or higher perspective that we really are all one, connected. And if you've done the loving exercise of bringing up loving feelings in yourself for somebody or something, that was in the Creating Your Positive Life audio or on the My Background webpage, that people often find that when they bring loving feelings up, when they're experiencing loving, the body feels soft, it feels warmth, relaxed, maybe expansive, gentleness, peace, and contrasting that when we experience negative feelings, we often feel tight, stressed, pain, acid stomach. So from that experience, it gave me the impression that our physical nature, our physical body, was telling us that being loving is our natural healthy state, that being loving may be inherent in our makeup. That's who we really are. So I wish you many blessings of love, joy, forgiveness, compassion, and really connecting with that loving part of yourself, opening up to your loving self. Thank you.